Kick the flow, kick the flow, kick the flow, kick the flow, kick the flow.
We'll be looking at measuring these things over quite a long period of time, and including things like life expectancy ultimately. But obviously we go with what we have on an ongoing basis.
I think that was, to be fair to them, that was one of the measures they looked at. But these are very, very complicated things to measure. I completely agree. Lord O'Neill, thanks very much indeed for that interview. Much appreciated. Now, coming up, my interview with Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, where we are today. He might not like me saying this, but he is the bookies' favourite to be the next Labour leader. I'm sure he'll tell me after the break why it's a little bit too early to be rushing down to the bookies today. Amelia Cox has your news.
Boris Johnson has avoided another fine following the latest round of fixed penalty notices over Partygate. More than 100 have now been issued by the Metropolitan Police after lockdown rules were broken in Downing Street. A cabinet minister says negotiations with the EU over the Northern Ireland Protocol have reached a very serious situation. Michael Ellis says the proposals made by Brussels would take the UK backwards. And 3 men have been arrested on suspicion of child abduction after a teenage girl went missing in Bristol. The 15-year-old has been found more than 2 weeks after she disappeared from her home. LBC weather, rain moving in from the west in northern areas tonight, drier in southern England and Wales, lows of 7 degrees.
This is LBC. Wicked. Discover the incredible untold story of the Witches of Oz.
What's this bird doing? Move, chief, to let you go.
Confidential, no win, no fee, fraud and scam claims. If you've been deceived by scammers, text HELP to 88200 and we could help you get your money back. We listen, we care.
If he wins tonight, however bad, as it were, the scrutiny committee is for him, and that seems to be a dangerous moment, however bad the Tiverton and Wakefield by-elections are, and those are also very important, there is no mechanism to get him out there.
No,
he just hangs on.
That's why the person you interviewed and said we bobbed it up or whatever was right, because he's, in theory at least, he's given a year's respite. And that's right. By the way, I approve of that. I didn't agree with the idea of shortening that period when that pressure was brought to bear on Theresa May, because you've got to bear in mind every Prime Minister in the future will be under permanent instability if you do that. So there's that. But the simple truth is there are a variety of mechanisms. Mechanism number one, you talk about the scrutiny of the Privileges Committee.
Yeah.
The Privileges Committee finds that he has broken the rules of the House. They could actually say you're no longer an MP for a month or whatever, and you can't be a Prime Minister if you're not a member of the House of Commons. So all
trying to find a way, I'm sure.
No, but what I'm saying to you is there are various angles through it, and the
Cabinet, of course, can act at any point if they would. Again, it's unlikely.
It doesn't seem to be a high probability, and doesn't even seem to be a high probability he'd pay any attention if they did. He just sacked them. Or he might call an election, or whatever. So all sorts of. We are literally in no man's land here, and I mean no man's land. There's no map for this.
One of the arguments I was alluding to it earlier on is that apart from Boris Johnson, there may be nobody in the Conservative Party at the moment who could actually unite it, given the differences on Brexit, given the differences on economic policy and the role of the state and so forth. Can you think of anybody who can come through and bring the Tory party by and large together?
Well, I don't know. That sort of depends on how the leadership contest plays out.
It's a big question, because if I was a Tory, I was wobbling tonight, and the answer to that question was no, there isn't anybody, I might well vote for Boris Johnson.
Right. Well, when Margaret Thatcher was deposed, nobody knew that John Major would be her successor.
No, we all thought Michael Heseltine would be her successor.
Exactly. You know, the most divisive character at that
Prowling
time.
around, yes.
Yeah. So, you know, that is not, you know, this is a sort of new thesis that somehow you've got to know the successor before you dispatch the previous one. So that doesn't fly. The other thing is the way the system works is an elimination system. And you end up voting.
Yeah.
You know, the person who wins ends up getting a majority of the vote. And normally speaking, didn't happen incidentally under Boris, and it may well be one of the first cracks. What normally happens is the person who comes second gets a senior post too. So you end up with a team.
Yeah.
You get a leader, but it's a team of two. You know, when Cameron beat me, I was Shadow Home Secretary. You know, and that held it together.
Let me talk about today, David, because as I said earlier on, you were there for the fall of Margaret Thatcher, as I was too, and I can remember being a very vigorous member of the Whip's office at the time of John Major too, and all of that. So what right now would a good Whip's operation be doing to save the Prime Minister?
Well, it would be obviously trying to persuade as many, to identify all the real waverers, not people like me who will have decided, or indeed the ones on the other side. Find the real waverers and put as much pressure as possible on them. By pressure, I mean persuasion in this context. Secondly, managing the expectations. One of the biggest things that protected John Major when he ran against John Redwood was the expectation management outcome at the end. When the result came out, you know, we had a series of, I mean, I wrote the bloody thing. You know, we had a series of things saying that this number of votes is a record since X, this number of votes is a record since Y.
Without being rude, this lot are not very sophisticated, are they?
Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. And from what you're saying about people not being here, not being called out and so on, it does sound like the system has not worked.
So if the Conservative Party is looking for a safe pair of hands, they might be looking for somebody who has got Brexit credentials but is liked on the Liberal wing of the party. Are there any circumstances in which you would run yourself?
Oh, God, I mean, don't even think about that. I mean, my view on this is let's get us through this phase and then see who comes up. You know, I don't know who's going to...
David, that's not quite a no, is it?
Oh, no, whoever says no, but the truth is it's not on my horizon. And the fact is that we've got a difficult unification operation, and that will be done by the election process. You know, whoever comes out the end.
Now, you have, as I say, you've seen this from both sides for a long time. So I'm going to end by asking you, brutally, what do you think is going to happen later on tonight?
Well, I think Boris will win technically, but I think it will be a psychological defeat, in the sense there'll be a very large number of people voting against, probably more than they're expecting, because I suspect quite a lot of ministers who are obviously publicly saying they're voting one way will vote the other. Somebody said to me a third will be in that position. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, if he's going to be an effective Prime Minister afterwards, who have come out against
That's the problem. The real problem of their calling this early is that we may end up with a sort of paralysed government, or a populist government, you know, where everything they do is just designed to try and curry favour with one sector of the population or another, and that's quite dangerous. That's where governments go wrong. They get it. You know,
it's not an appetising prospect at all. I can see Rishi Sunak walking out of the committee, I think, there, so he's just voted. David Davis, thank you very much indeed for that. Somebody who's been listening to that, you know an awful lot about the Conservative Party, but my co-presenter on LBC, Ian Dale, also knows a great deal about the Conservative Party, I think more than any other, certainly regular broadcaster in the British media.
We won't have a competitive quiz.
We are Aid. Get money in your pocket. Download the app today.
This is LBC Tonight with Andrew Marr.
Now, coming up, I'm going to be taking a look at another very busy week at Westminster, and that's underplaying it, really. But first, to a man who's had a very busy career at Westminster for a long time. My next guest is Lord Michael Howard, the former leader of the Conservative Party. Michael, I think, was it 34 years ago to this day that you first entered the House of Commons?
39.
39 years, my goodness.
83.
83. You came in that election. Can I ask you to return to the Michael Howard of 1983? What did it feel like when you entered? What kind of person were you then?
I was quite old to get in for the first time. I was very nearly 42. And it was an election in which we had 100 new members. It was the election which gave Margaret Thatcher her biggest majority. And I remember, and I